Good morning on this lovely Monday morning. It is a little bit dull here in County Kerry. It's a bit kind of grey and wet, but I don't care because I've got loads to do today, so actually it's less of a temptation for me to go outside when it's like this, so it means I'll get everything done. So I hope the weather is lovely where you are, or that the weather is suiting you in some way. And if you are joining me, do let me know by giving me a thumbs up or a heart, or let me know who you are. That would be fantastic. Welcome to my Monday messages. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Rebecca. And I am a QTT personal development coach, mentor, and homeopath. And I use all three methods to help you and your family to stay as well and happy as you can be. And my Monday messages are about just popping in and giving a theme, a focus, an idea, perhaps a little simple practice for the week, to help you all to become the best version of yourselves that you can be, to start to practice little simple self-regulation tools that can help us to understand and manage our emotions and our feelings, and therefore our behaviours, and ultimately our interaction with other people, or communication, which is very important, as well as communication with ourselves, I should add. So last week I spoke about helping to understand that or how we all have different views of the world. We all have a different perspective of the world depending on our own experiences and the beliefs and the values and the emotions and the feelings, excuse me, that we've attached to those experiences. And it will be very, very different. We can all actually have pretty, on the face of it, pretty similar experiences, but our takeout from those experiences can be very different. It's why many brothers and sisters, siblings in the same family, have very different memories of certain events, or very different evaluations of those events. And that is because it depends on how we see the world. So that was what last week was about. And I gave you a little phrase to practice to stop you getting pulled into kind of pointless arguments where you might feel that you are in a sort of battle of wills to defend your view of the world and try and convince somebody else that they should be coming to stand with you and seeing it from your point of view. And that phrase was, that's really interesting. I've never thought about it like that before. And what I find about using that kind of phrase is that it just calms everything down. It takes the emotion out of it. It signals to the person that you're talking to that you are respecting, that they have a different view, and that you're listening to them, and that you're not being judgmental of them for having that view. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today. So it's another piece, I don't think I put it in the title, but it's kind of part 2 to that, helping you to have better communications with other people in the world and also yourself. So elaborating on that, what I wanted to do today was to really focus on that not judging people piece. And I suppose if we're able to separate behaviour or actions from the person, that's the biggest thing. So if you start to practice that, then that's very, very important. If it helps, and it helped me when I was learning this, is to think about how we parent. If we're consciously parenting, we're very conscious not to tell particularly small children when they do behaviour that is perhaps, not the right way to go, that is antisocial, or, disturbs our family values in some way. We're very careful not to tell that child that they are bad for doing that behaviour, that they are, silly or stupid or always making mistakes. So I want you to actually just remember that actually the reason we do that is because children are learning. They're learning how to be in the world. They're learning and looking to us as their teachers to show them the right way, or certainly to show them a way that is congruent with how they are, and that later on is going to help them to feel good about themselves and help them to communicate productively with other people, and hopefully with kindness and compassion and love and non-judgment. And we all have that child still within us. And I like to regard making mistakes, and that's just a phrase that we all use, but I don't, they're not really mistakes. They just show you've tried to do something, and possibly you need to keep practicing it, basically. That's my view anyway. So we are all learning all the time. And the important thing is that we keep trying to learn. And if we make, errors of judgment, we say that possibly, we say something clumsily, we choose an action that possibly, might not be the best action given the circumstances. Whatever it is, it's not good maths to then leap to, well, that means I'm a bad person, or that means the person that's done this is a bad person, or a stupid person, or a mean person, whatever it is, whatever the situation demands. So what I want you to do this week is really focus on not going down that route. And I think the first thing to do is to practice on ourselves. So I don't know, I'm sure that most of you have some kind of little inner voice that comes in if you feel that you have done the wrong thing or said the wrong thing. And sometimes that little voice can be really destructive and really negative. I had a voice for a long, long time that used to come in all the time. If I felt I had made any kind of error, any kind of mistake, then I would immediately be pulled into feeling that I had screwed up, that I was a screw up, that what I did was less than perfect, and therefore I should never have done it. And it actually prevented me from doing a lot of things that, with hindsight, I could have done and really excelled at and really got enjoyment from. And that little voice stopped me. It made me, because I was being tipped into feelings of shame, a lot of shame, and a lot of I'm not perfect, so therefore I shouldn't be doing these things. It stopped me from doing anything unless I was pretty much 100% confident that I wasn't going to make a mistake, that I could execute it perfectly. And it wasn't until I started to do some work on myself that I realised that this voice, when it kicked in, was actually very, very like my mother's voice. My mother had a parenting style that she felt she had to protect us from feeling less than perfect, from feeling shame. The shame that she felt because she had the same sort of parenting. So when I was hearing that voice, it was repeating a pattern that I had set up from mostly from hearing the way that my mother dealt with any of us, me or my sisters, making any kind of perceived mistake. She, rather than saying, okay, what can we learn from this? Her approach was to say, oh my God, you must never do that again. That means you are not doing your best, not being perfect. You haven't done your best. So what I did is I chose to stop myself from ever doing anything where I would feel vulnerable and that I perhaps couldn't do my best. So what I would like you to do is just whenever you feel that voice coming in, I want you to go through a series of stages. So first of all, just notice this week when that voice comes in. Is it every day? Is it only in certain situations? Is there any kind of pattern to it that you can start identifying? Okay, yeah, my little critic comes in whenever I do X, Y, Z. That's helpful identification. The second thing is to just kind of give yourself a breath, put it on pause, and just think about separating what you've just done or said that you think was a mistake and yourself. So you're just hitting the pause button before you go down that quite dodgy maths actually that says because I have made a mistake or said the wrong thing or done the wrong thing in my view, then therefore that means I am lacking in some way. I have failed in some way. So just hitting that pause button and going, okay, let's look at what I said or did that I think was wrong in some way. What can I learn from it? What lesson is there? Like a child, what can we learn from that behaviour? Does it feel nice? Doesn't it feel nice? Did it help you to do something? What might it help you to do in the future? Even if it's, actually, now I think about it, I was pushing myself a bit too hard, a bit burnt out, so that's why I snapped. So the learning from that would be, I mustn't push myself so hard. Or it could be that I really think it would be more productive if I just took a breath before I said something or before I pressed the send button or anything like that. Good morning, Sarah. You're very, very welcome. Just going to send you a wave. So Sarah, I'm talking about, following on from last week's video, just trying to exercise non-judgment on our own behaviour and obviously the behaviour of others. And I know, Sarah, you would understand this very well when you're talking about parenting. We're very careful to separate the behaviour from the child. And what I've been saying is that I think we should continue that as adults because we're always learning. And it's important to pull out learning, positive learning, from anything that we do or say. And just hitting the pause button, noticing, okay, this doesn't mean I'm not going to go from here where I made my perceived mistake right to, oh, that means me as a whole, I'm a screw up. You're going to pause before you do that and just think about, well, what's the positive learning from what's just happened? So that's one thing. And the second thing, it's something I found very useful, is to just think about, who does this voice, when she comes in, excuse me, who does she remind you of, she or he? Is it somebody that when you stop and think about it is quite a familiar voice? And for me, as I said earlier, it was very much my mother's voice, coming in, trying to prevent me from doing anything where I couldn't do it absolutely perfectly, because that would stop me from feeling ashamed or feeling a failure. Actually, when I really looked at it, it gave me a lot of positives as well. So it's important to recognise that. But if you do think, oh God, that's my dad's voice, or that's my mum's voice, or that's my teacher's voice, or perhaps even a sibling's voice, that you don't start going, oh, you know, God, why did they say that, and go into judgments, because we're trying not to do that, because we don't know why necessarily those people have set that pattern up. As I said, in my mother's case, I now can see very clearly why she was doing that pattern. So whilst I would try very hard not to do that as a parent myself, I am not judging my mother for having done it. So I hope that distinction is crystal clear, really. And it works when we're looking at other people, and in particular, you know, as parents, but it also works when we're listening to our own critical voices. Good morning, Grania. I'll give you a wave. So the steps are, when that little voice comes in, oh, I said or did the wrong thing, to just hit the pause button before you go down the rabbit hole that says, oh, that means I'm a screw up. If necessary, if you think you've already gone there, just see if you can imagine physically separating the two, so that in two different places, one's you, one is your behaviour, if you like, because our behaviours are not us. So once you've done that, just think about the positive learnings. You know, what can I learn from this? What good learnings can I take from what's just happened? And then, who does the voice remind you of? And that might just help you to understand where you've got these values from. Now, you can't always, so don't beat yourself up if you can't. If some kind of familiar voice doesn't come in and you don't identify it, no worries. I'm just saying, just be conscious of where these things are coming from and whether they're serving you or not. So that was really kind of all I wanted to say, I think, this morning, was to just practice that separation of behaviour from ourselves. And then we're better able to go outside and separate behaviour or actions from other people. And we can then be less judgmental. It doesn't mean to say we accept behaviour in ourselves or in others. You know, if we've identified that is hurtful behaviour, it's harmful in some way, then obviously it's not something we want to be emulating or perpetuating, either in others or in ourselves. However, it's behaviour, it's not the person. So I hope that's clear. Let me just see if I've just covered everything that I wanted to say. Yeah, I think so. So do, as ever, do let me know how you're getting on. If you put the two video messages together, then what we're doing is we are starting to get a bit more control over our emotions and the way that we react to things. And hopefully we will be able to respond rather than react. So that's the aim of both the halves of this action, if you like. So the first is to recognise how other people have different views of the world. And the second is to try and exercise non-judgement of people for having those different views. Okay, so good morning, Ray. Hello. I'm just sending you a wave. And Sarah is saying, put my glasses on. Very clear, thank you. I find I'm quick to react in the situation and then regret it afterwards. So hoping to work on this. Sarah, you are so not alone in that. Absolutely. And that will depend on our individual triggers. So I know that I've done a lot of work on myself, and actually my sort of inner critic, if you like, doesn't actually come out that much, I'm happy to say now. However, there are certain triggers that for me will still mean that I'm straight in there before I've pressed that pause button. So that for me is an important part of the piece, is just practicing almost taking a step backwards, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, giving yourself a sort of deep breath before you respond and thinking about, okay, if I write this online, say, or if I say this, what am I trying to communicate when I'm doing that? And is that a productive thing to do? Is that going to ensure that I get a nice, healthy exchange of views going? Or is it actually just telling the other person that I'm upset and that I'm hurt or that I'm angry? Any of those things. So sometimes just being able to identify what the feeling is behind what you want to say, and therefore what's been triggered in you. And actually, keeping journals and writing these things down. So that's why I think it's helpful to do these kind of simple practices for a whole week, because it enables you to actually watch what your patterns are, what your triggers are. For most of us, I think if we're in any way doing any kind of personal development work, we have worked on a lot of stuff. But there's always more. And just knowing, okay, this person is wandering into what I know is a massive trigger for me. So I need to be more conscious, be more mindful of my own reactions. I have no power over the other person and what they're saying and what they're doing. But I can protect myself. I can put my boundaries in place. Sarah, I know you'll know what I mean when I say, and Gronya as well, put your bubble on, get into your bubble of protection, and just be mindful that you can still observe what someone's saying and what they're doing, but it's not going to come right into you at a core level. And you can therefore have better clarity over how you respond to that trigger. That's a huge part of it, actually. And it does take practice, but actually once you start doing that, it quickly becomes a habit. And if you do notice that something's popped up that you've just, all of that's been abandoned and you've gone straight in, and then you think, oh my God, what did I say that for? Then just thinking about, okay, why was I triggered? What was it that triggered me? What feeling came up? So what can I learn from that? So I hope that helps. Yeah, and just sitting with where it came from. Often, obviously, when we're triggered, it is because we are carrying different values from people as adults, even as children, actually. And they are kind of, unwittingly challenging those values. So often coming back to that, and that's where often your parents come in, or your teachers, or, sports coaches, or previous mentors, or anything. If you can kind of link it with, where did I pick this up and why is it important to me, then that's very helpful as well. So I'll leave you to practice for the week. Please let me know how you get on. I'd love to hear. And if you feel that there's some triggers there that you just can't really identify clearly, or that you feel are too deep, too painful to start shifting on your own, then of course, then come and work with me one-to-one. Or if you want to know more about that, then do click on the link to my website. That's www.rebeccaatkinson.com, and there's a hyphen in between Rebecca and Atkinson, but there's a link in the post with this video. And you can have a look at the information there. There's several videos on there. You can also register for a free phone call with me if you have any questions and you want to find out more information. And we can have a chat and see how you can work best with me so that you can be the best version of you that you can possibly be. I will put my hands up and say I'm still a work in progress, and probably always will be, but I'm an awful lot better than I used to be, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So have a wonderful week. Thank you very much for joining me. And if you're watching the replay, it's not too late to post your comments. I will get back to you. So yeah, practice that. Sticking the pause button on and not judging yourself and not judging others. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.